Welcome to the Wave Strength. Innovative pension solutions for a secure retirement. Presented by Pacific Life.
Welcome to the Wave Strength webinar series. My name is Russ Proctor. I've been with Pacific Life for about 11 years and in the financial industry for about 35 years. And with me today is Allie.
I'm Allie Smith. I've been with Pacific Life for almost 8 years, most recently in the life insurance division and now in the institutional division for about 7 months.
In today's episode, we will be discussing financial security and in particular the importance of training and preparation for retirement. Anything that you do in life, it is important that you're training and preparing for it. And we do it throughout life for lots of things, but interesting enough that a lot of people don't do that for retirement. And I don't know, Allie, if you've had examples of things where you've seen the training or lack of training for retirement or training where you did for other things?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, starting a new role is a perfect example of training. I came over from the life insurance division, so that's an entirely different suite of products, customers, concerns from, participants that we deal with. That's, a huge example of training, and that's an ongoing process. And even, in my personal life, I love to travel. So that involves training to know how to get through an airport or look at where you're going to stay or, what happens if your flight gets canceled.
So we know training is important in a lot of areas. And in fact, we saw a recent episode of the Wave Strength video that we saw.
Yeah, Michelle Curran, former U.S. Air Force fighter pilot, was, talking about the training that she undergoes as a former Thunderbird. And, how much goes into that from a physical. I mean, you're doing all types of things in the air. So, training your body, your mind, everything in order to, perform that job, efficiently.
Right. Yeah. And that was really interesting to me because you think about in that environment where you have to really train before the mission. Like you have to have everything figured out. You have to be in shape. You have to know what you're doing before you get there. And yet in the retirement world, we see so many folks that really are just kind of going along and not planning ahead and training as much as they should. And as they get close to retirement, they start to think about like, oh, I wonder now if I have enough money. And it's really hard if you're in the middle of your mission or you're in the middle of retirement and you're still trying to plan or train for that retirement.
Absolutely. And I think there's something to be said for the difference of, planning ahead versus I've been able to plan and now I can pivot or I haven't planned at all. So, in my mind, at least, what I've started to do is, taking some of those resources and, even in our own empathy interviews that we've conducted within the institutional division, something that we heard across the board was, where do I find the tools? Where do I find the resources? How do I create this, what I like to call toolkit where you can access those different things and pieces of information to, know that you're prepared, not just, waiting, too long.
Yeah, I think that's important. And I think like training for retirement is making sure you're taking the steps along the way that get you to the right spot. So for example, if you're not contributing to your 401k plan, to make sure you start contributing there and to what level do you increase it to? And looking at your investments, are you allocated correctly for the long term? Those kind of little steps that you can be taking so that when you get to retirement, you're not all of a sudden trying to think about like, how come I don't have enough money?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, that all goes back to, the things that we heard from our own, internal employees of, there were even benefits that they didn't know that they had. So how can you really be, financially ready if you haven't had a chance to go out there and, consult even with your peers or financial advisor or, read materials or use, online tools in order to know where you're at, and so that you feel more secure and know that, I gain a little bit more confidence each time. Okay, I'm able to just focus on my 401k now, or now I can start looking at investments as opposed to, doing it all at one time because it's just way too overwhelming and you'll probably just end up doing nothing. If someone says to you, well, you need $1 million, well, I can't just produce that out of nowhere.
That's right. Yeah, I think about like preparations and other things in life where if I'm going to go for a ride on my Harley, that way beforehand, I'll be preparing it, checking the tire pressure, checking the shocks, that the right amount of air pressure is in there, make sure it's full of gas, all the things that I do before the ride. And yet a lot of times I think people are not thinking about the retirement. Like, are they having the money? Are they investing it properly? Are they maxing out their employer match? All of those kind of things that we don't think about even though it's really going to be important for your life.
Absolutely. I mean, and I would say even, going back to the Harley reference, putting on the helmet, you may or may not crash, but you're going to wear that helmet.
Yeah.
So, same thing, even if, you retire early or retire late or something happens or something doesn't, you have that security.
Yeah.
So I think, it's more of a financial marathon as opposed to a financial sprint.
Yeah, I like that comparison, because one thing in writing that people have always said is that you never can choose the day that you might tip your motorcycle over, but every time you get on it, you choose what you're going to be wearing when it tips over. And so the helmet or the elbow pads, whatever else that you want to put on, you prepare all of that ahead of time. And same thing with retirement. You don't really know what's going to happen in retirement, but you know it's coming at some point,
right.
Hopefully. And so you want to be prepared when it does arrive so you're not surprised. So, another area when we're talking about training, because we've talked all about preparing for retirement, making sure that you have enough there. But another thing that people don't think enough about is how are they actually going to be spending their retirement, like planning ahead and training for retirement. And some of that is thinking about, well, what are your expenses in retirement going to be? A lot of people don't think that far ahead. Is their house going to be paid off? Are they going to have medical expenses that they're preparing for? Do they want to travel, which I know is a thing that you like to do. There's a budget for that, to plan ahead. Okay, what would you be doing in travel? So I think that's another where to think not just to retirement, but beyond retirement. Like, how are you going to be spending your money in retirement and plan and train for that ahead of time?
But what would you say to someone who, thinks about, oh, well, am I going to take it all at one time? Should I expense it out? Should I invest in an HSA? How do you have that conversation, or how does someone think about that?
Yeah, I think it's important as you're thinking through your retirement spending to divide it up into things that are like your fixed expenses that you have. Like if you're still going to have a mortgage payment, that you need to make sure that's covered, and that can't be something you miss on a month to month. You have to pay certain things. You have to pay your utility bills, things like that, where you may want some kind of guaranteed income that's tied to that. So I think that's part of it. Other things like for some people, vacations and traveling may be optional or variable, where you can travel or not. Others are like, no, I have to do that every year. So you may want to make sure that you've got guaranteed income to cover those things that you want to do.
I might just retire on a cruise ship, and then hopefully that's still a fixed expense if they, will let you do that type of arrangement. Well, thank you so much for joining us on today's episode of The Wave Strength. Please go check us out on YouTube and Spotify for more content, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
This has been another episode of The Wave Strength, presented by Pacific Life. Don't forget to catch us on YouTube and make sure to subscribe. Although this is presented by Pacific Life, the opinions and views expressed are those of the hosts and participants and do not necessarily reflect Pacific Life's views on any of the topics discussed. Pacific Life is a product provider. It is not a fiduciary and therefore does not give advice or make recommendations regarding insurance or investment products. Pacific Life, its affiliates, its distributors, and respective representatives do not provide any employer-sponsored qualified plan administrative services or impartial advice about investments, and do not act in a fiduciary capacity for any plan. Pacific Life refers to Pacific Life Insurance Company, Newport Beach, California, and its affiliates, including Pacific Life and Annuity Company. Insurance products are issued by Pacific Life Insurance Company in all states except New York, and in all states by Pacific Life and Annuity Company. Product availability and features may vary by state. Each insurance company is solely responsible for the financial obligations accruing under the products it issues. This was recorded on April 7th, 2022.